Right, I'm thinking that we've probably got a few more people joining us, but should we get started, Nick?
Can do.
Get going, and then we'll just, as people come in, I'll let them in.
Okay.
But obviously you've all seen the email and the sort of marketing for this extra special webinar. So it's an extra session. We just thought it was such a good idea and so important that we wanted to put on this additional session for you. This is Nick, who will be presenting today, who's developed this scheme to help Ukrainian bookkeepers and also to really benefit your own practice. So I'll let Nick introduce what he's doing. Hopefully he'll answer all your questions, but if there's anything you do want to know, just type it in the chat box. Just make sure your chat box setting is set to everybody, and then we'll deal with all the questions. Do you want me to do it as we go along, Nick, or do you want to wait till the end if we get questions at the end?
I don't mind.
Okay, we'll see what happens. We'll do it that way.
Just, if we get any,
yeah,
start with
indeed.
That. Right. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to this. I'm an accountant in Bournemouth. You can see Bournemouth behind me, or half of it anyway. Not quite as sunny today as the picture, sadly. And this came about as most good things do, slightly by mistake. A series of happy-ish accidents. So we were fairly keen. Most of my team are Eastern-ish European based by accident. So when the war with Ukraine started, I was fairly keen to check in with them to make sure they were feeling comfortable and their families were okay, whatever. So we've got Polish, Lithuanian, Slovakian, somewhere else, and Crimean Russian. And we had a few conversations with Sergei, or I did, and he was describing how he was talking to his friends and his cousins in Kyiv and hearing explosions going on in the background and things of that nature. So we were fairly keen to help where we could. And I am acting for a charity fundraising company in London. All I do is their strategic management and their ad hoc little events. And one of their subsidiaries is an employment agency, an ethical employment agency called Real Jobs. And we did some strategy work with them. And they were also keen to help Ukrainians, and they had 2 Ukrainian girls come over, a partnership, one of whom happened to be an accountant. And so fairly obviously, Tom at Real Jobs did the sensible thing and said, who do I know who's an accountant that could help me? So he rang me. Now, at the same time, we had a senior girl on mat leave and a slight capacity issue. And I took a completely non-business decision with probably the shortest employment job interview that I've ever done, which, apart from telling her what we did, was pretty much, what's your name, can you start on Tuesday? Which I don't recommend, but I did anyway. And she started on Tuesday. Her English isn't fantastic, but it's improving extremely quickly. She has got a master's in accounting and auditing, and she used to run a metal foundry in Kryvyi Rih, which is where Zelensky comes from. In fact, Zelensky taught her computer science when she was at uni. And she's excellent. I mean, just to my delight, she's excellent. And so we thought about, well, this is, gosh, you know, what can we do here? And I thought more, we had the opportunity, or the thought, didn't really turn into anything some years ago, of trying to train bookkeepers locally to get them to a slightly better standard than we are experiencing. And I apologize if there's any bookkeeping firms on this webinar, but frankly, well, I'm not impressed. And our clients deserve better from the bookkeeping support that we get from quite a lot of self-employed bookkeepers and just bookkeeping firms. They don't seem to look at balance sheets. And as we get into MTD type arenas, then we need to be slightly pickier with what we're sending to HMRC so that we can avoid any future issues for our clients and ourselves and make it vaguely profitable. So I just thought, could I take this half of this idea and dovetail it into another half of our idea? And I wondered if there was an opportunity there. So I spoke to QuickBooks, because we're mainly a QuickBooks practice. QuickBooks almost instantly set up a working party because they like it. I spoke to the employment agency who we used this Real Jobs to employ Lena, our girl. And they have a model for doing this, whereby they employed Lena for 12 weeks, did all the onboarding, all the HR, all the payroll, all the rest of it. And at the end of 12 weeks, we decide whether we want to employ her full-time, in which case she'd become our employee, which she did on the 1st of August. Or we could say, no, you're rubbish. Or we could extend effectively a probationary period. The employment agency charged us cost plus a £2 an hour uplift, which is significantly less than they charge anybody else because they want to help Ukrainians. And there is no placement fee. If you took someone like Lena on yourself, just like a normal employment agency, straight immediately without the 12 weeks, then they would charge something fairly modest. I think Tom has said something around about 600 quid, so which is significantly less than you pay for a normal employment agency. She's doing bookkeeping on QuickBooks, which she took to like a duck to water. She's been introduced to Xero. She's been introduced to a rather unusual arcane system called Bright Pearl as well, which is an ERP system with bookkeeping, which you may or may not have come across. I hadn't until 3 months ago. She is doing year-end working papers now, and she is starting to post into final accounts production software as well. And she's been here for 16 weeks, which I think is a fairly steep and good learning curve. We started to, having talked to QuickBooks as to can we get some training, having talked to the employment agency to see is this something you'd like to run sort of at some scale. I then decided there's two other sides to this. Obviously, the first is, are there any Ukrainian bookkeepers and accountants who want jobs? And are there any accountancy practices who want people who are skilled like this? So I posted 2 posts, one in the Dorset for Ukraine Facebook page, who directed me to the Finance and Accounting for Ukraine Facebook page. So they got an identical post in that. We've got between 40 and 50 people interested. We have started the QuickBooks training to the extent that we have got 2 cohorts, 2 small cohorts, but 8 each, started their training. We've done sessions with QuickBooks to set them up on training. They're doing the courses of certification online themselves. We are available to help if they need it. Our plan is they get course certification in QuickBooks, so an accountancy practice will know then that they are reasonably competent and have some clue as to what UK accounting terminology means. They can transfer to Xero or Free Agent or something else, really a couple of hours conversion, just like anybody else. If you're a Xero practice instead of a QuickBooks practice, for example. But then we know they've got some level of competence. We should be reasonably comfortable with offering up to people like you who may want someone. The general education level is either degree or master's in accounting or economics, and apparently a master's in economics has got a strong accounting background. So they can all do double entry bookkeeping. They are all used to be at the level of CFO or chief accountant. So they are self-motivated, self-organized, hardworking, grateful, and keen. And that sort of ticks a few boxes for an employee for me, and I rather hope it ticks it for you too. I don't think that even if they are so grossly overqualified for an entry-level position, that's going to matter too much to a practice. I don't think it matters to us, may not matter to you as well. I don't think they're going to be looking for CFO and chief accountant positions in the UK, or rather they won't successfully look. I mean, one or two will get something decent, but most of them, I don't think an employer will take them on as a CFO, knowing that they have got a maximum 3-year visa and they'll be going back to the Ukraine at some point. So I think also that an entry-level salary here is the equivalent of a chief accountant salary in the Ukraine. I've done a little look at some of the salary comparisons and also the level of unemployment. I've told Jena, and this is my decision, and you may agree, disagree, it may fit or may not fit with your situation. I've told her that if she wants to go back to the Ukraine and still work for us, she can. You see, she's not working in our office. We are in Bournemouth. She's in London. So she's working remotely in the cloud. And this works really well that way. There may be a few people that I can find who will be local to an office if you want to take someone that can actually work in your office. But I'm suggesting it will be easier to work remotely. They've all got laptops. They need a second screen. You need to check that their working environment is suitable, just like any sensible employer would do for their employee. But that's about it. I don't think they need much in the way of extra training. And I'm sorry, I remarked on the unemployment situation. I forgot to say the second sentence. There are job boards in Ukraine for every possible job, obviously, as you can imagine, online. The last one I looked at last week, it had 2,736, I think, vacancies for accountants. And it had 255,000 CVs on that job board with accountants. So there's about 100 people looking for every job. When people go back to the Ukraine, we don't know what they're going to go back to. And great parts of it have been flattened by the Russians, so they may not physically be able to go back. There will be no physical infrastructure or economy in quite a lot of areas, and people are displaced. So there will be a lot of competition for whatever jobs there are. So I think when, in my case, Jena will go back to Ukraine at some point. She can still work for us. She's still got the support she needs that we're giving her in the UK when she goes back, until she finds something that suits her better, if she ever does. Because I think her factory is I'm not sure it's still in existence, and certainly all the people have left because they couldn't. There was no bomb shelter nearby, so they just had to let everybody go, just in case. You'll know the metal foundry, it runs 24/7. You can't turn it off. It can't go cold, so they couldn't let people there in case there was a bombing or something. The other things I think you may be interested in is the training and the level of English. Level of English, we're saying they need to be something like IELTS level 5 or CEFR B1, B2, which means they've got reasonable conversational English. Level 5 IELTS gets you into quite a lot of college courses. Level 6 you need for university. So you need to have some English, but they are picking it up really quickly. I don't think Liana had that level when she started at all. But after 3 months, we managed it. We were quite lucky, so I'll be honest with you and say we've got Russian-speaking staff members, so we could do with it quite reasonably easily. Though Yana is very good, and all the other Ukrainians seem to be very good with Google Translate. She was sending out perfectly well-worded and sensible emails to clients within a few days. We obviously check them. Sorry, we're all working from home, which means the phones come through here to start with. As you can tell, all the phones go at once, bless. So there will be an English issue to start with. I don't think it will be much of one for long. They will be unfamiliar with UK suppliers. If you do any offshoring already, we've got a Filipino guy in Manila, and we had to tell him, that Wix was a builder's merchants and things like that. But they will be probably picking up bookkeeping for existing clients rather than brand new ones, which would be an unkind thing to do to a new employee of any sort, and you wouldn't want to do that. So they'll be looking back at what's been gone on before, and they tend to pick it up. I mean, Ian in Manila picked it up in again about a month. So will everybody else. To answer Nigel, I am suggesting that you route it through this particular employment agency to start with, though you don't have to. And they will employ for up to 12 weeks, and then you decide whether you want to take them on. And they're charging cost plus £2 an hour. If you want to take them on quicker, then that's fine. That's up to you and your brand new employee. And they will charge you, the employment agency will charge you a proportion of 600 quid as a placement fee, because they will have done vetting, finding out what you need, and a proper matching service in the meantime. I think that's easier than just sending you 40 or 50 CVs, frankly, to pick through. Whilst I talk about who gets what out of this, that is the only fee that anybody gets ever. The employment agency gets its £2 an hour, or it's up to £600. I get nothing from anybody, and I'm not looking to get anything from anybody. Though if you get a good placement and you're really happy with your person, a bottle of red wine would be very nice. But that's you. But I'll stop at that. Most of the people I'm talking to have worked in industry rather than practice. I think I've got two CVs that have got some practice experience. So you've got the usual issue of converting them to practice work. And when I'm talking to the Ukrainians, I'm saying three things. You are unfamiliar with UK suppliers. You need to learn. You need to say please and thank you quite a lot, which you may not be used to, because we are a very polite race, even if we don't mean it. So you need to gently lead your clients through to where you want rather than demanding. And you need to recognize that you are not in command now of the document flow. So you cannot demand from your clients they do things when you want them. They have got other things to do apart from admin and bookkeeping. And as we all unfortunately know, the admin and bookkeeping tends not to be the highest priority amongst our client bases. So they need to be gently and regularly moved along a path to get where you need them to be, so they get things done in the correct timeframes and don't get any penalties and get the right information for their decision making. So I tell them all of that. You as an employer, naturally for a new employee, will be checking emails for content and tone anyway. So you do this for them. I don't think it's any different. In large areas, this is no different from taking anybody else. When we started with Lena, she had not seen QuickBooks before, so she was slower out of the traps than I think your guys should be. But we were still getting her reasonably productive, some properly chargeable time, by the end of week 1 for certain. And now I don't have a terrible problem in recovering her time at all after 3 months, which is pretty much normal practice, I would think, for a new employee. But you would know better. You may have a better system, in which case, please tell me. It's just like taking on a new employee. You've got to do all the normal training. You've got to do your own GDPR and AML training, but the placement fees are very, 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 very cheap. You get a try before you buy over this 12-week period, and they get some experience, which helps them with a subsequent job, even if you don't want them. And you're helping Ukrainians. And I think, frankly, ladies and gentlemen, you're helping yourself. If I could have more, if we needed more of these people, I would unhesitatingly take them. But we don't.
And that all sounds great,
No.
Nick. It sounds really well thought out, actually, the whole scheme. So does anybody else have any questions, or are they just, even if it sounds silly, please do
Or
say
remarks. Yeah. Good idea, bad idea.
Yeah. Just what you think about it. Either put something in the chat box or unmute yourself and tell us out loud. That sounds good. Thanks, Libby. Yeah, I suppose the one question is, so if somebody does want to start this, what do they do? How do they get going?
Well, I am putting in the chat now where they can go.
Okay. Which
is just email tom@myrealjobs.org.
Okay.
Have I spelt that properly? No, I haven't.
I'm not sure that's come through.
I haven't done it yet.
Oh, sorry. Okay, that's why.
Checking my spelling.
All right.
myrealjobs.org. Really don't want to give you a duff. It is wrong. I've got an I in it as well. It's okay. Real jobs, not really jobs.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the starting point.
Yeah.
Okay. So does anybody have any sort of worries about this, or sort of anxieties about what might not happen?
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry that my screen's not on.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Nick. As Libby says, interesting information. You said that the individual that you had wasn't familiar with QuickBooks. We actually use Xero in our practice, and I'm just wondering, depend on their level of English and somebody that may be in industry and not practice, and then trying to use the software, did you find that quite challenging? Did it take long, with the communication, learning a new software? And again, if their background, as I said, was more industry rather than practice, did you find that challenging?
Strangely, no, Rose. I mean, I should have done, shouldn't I? It's a perfectly sensible question. That's what you would expect. We got her into QuickBooks quite quickly. She's done a Xero conversion. It took her, about an hour. When you get your employee, if you want to use this route, then they will have a QuickBooks core certification. So they'll be reasonably comfortable with what things mean on a balance sheet and profit and loss account. Now, there's some terminology difference in QuickBooks and Xero. I mean, Xero talks about reconciliation, QuickBooks talks about matching, things like that, but it's in the same place and it's doing the same job, and they can work that bit out. So I don't think there's going to be, I think they'll be quicker out of the blocks than Lena was, because she had to learn QuickBooks first, which took her a little, not a lot, a couple of days. possibly, but I think you'd be quicker out the blocks for that. English, yeah, it depends on who you get. Over a month or two, it'll improve really quite quickly, even if it's not good. What English they've got is conversational English rather than any technical English. So they'll have to learn what debtors and creditors mean, but they'll see it on a balance sheet. They'll know where things, these people have got, up to 20 years experience. So they'll know what a balance sheet looks like. They'll know where things placed. So they'll work out that if it's in that area, that means debtor, and that means bank, and that means creditor, and these are fixed assets. So they'll get past the terminology, I think, really, really quite quickly. Actually, does that answer your question? Yes, it does. Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Rose.
So Nigel, you've put that you outsourced to a bookkeeping company in Kosovo already, and so I'm wondering if you have had the same sort of experiences. If you wanted to unmute yourself.
Well, the point I was really making was that we actually don't use people in the UK. I mean, the company in Kosovo, actually, they cover Albania, Serbia, I mean, and we have to make sure that they have PII and all sorts of stuff. But I suppose it was a matter of, if there were, I don't think that, I'm not sure whether people around Kosovo, whether they speak Russian, actually. I think it's mostly Serbian and Albanian, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But basically, yeah, I just mentioned it in case, there was something there for me to introduce them to some of the Ukrainian people. I don't know. But we wouldn't be interested directly in employing any.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Nigel. That's great. So any other questions coming through? As I say, we have got a sort of sheet that Nigel's prepared of FAQs, which we'll send out after this. And obviously, if you think of something later on, then Nick, are they okay just to drop you an email if they've got further questions?
Yeah.
Do you want to put your email address in the chat as well? Then that would be good.
I will do that small thing.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, so obviously, if anybody has got any more questions, put them in now. I think you've probably covered pretty much everything about how the whole scheme works. Oh, that's great, Libby. This is perfect timing for you then.
All right.
That's good. So yeah, is there anything else you want to add, Nick?
Don't think so. Thank you.
No. Okay.
Except from thank you for coming and attending, and I hope it's a benefit to you.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for being here. Nick is running another session tomorrow for non-AVN members, but you're always welcome to join that one as well if you want to hear it all again. Just get it really into your head how it all works.
More people.
But yeah, hopefully it's given you an idea of how this works and how it actually benefits you as well as benefiting the Ukrainian bookkeepers. So thanks very much indeed, Nick, for sharing with us, and we'll be seeing you tomorrow.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll end the session now. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.